Wales, where wind speeds are increasing and the temperature is rising as firefighters deal with conditions the Rural Fire Service Commissioner says could be catastrophic. Fire crews across the Blue Mountains region have so far managed to prevent the massive 1,500-kilometre Lithgow fire front from joining with the Springwood bushfire. But residents are continuing to leave their homes on advice from authorities to get out unless they're actively defending their properties. The World Today's Martin Cudahy is in Springwood and filed this report.
On the Great Western Highway, cars, vans, trucks, utes and even caravans are forming a lengthy convoy. The exodus is travelling away from the Blue Mountains and into Western Sydney.
Once the fireys come and say it's getting dangerous, you need to go, we don't argue it, we're going. We've got rid of as much as we can in terms of our leaf litter, anything that's close to the house that is combustible, obviously. Put inside barns things that could combust, like straw that we use on the gardens, that type of thing. Filled up our gutters, gutter plugs in there, into the gutters. We've taken out all our mementos, things that are irreplaceable by insurance. We've got that packed into the car ready to go.
The forecast hot and windy weather has arrived. The sun is fierce. It's one of those days where it feels like the skin will burn quickly. The upper branches of gum trees are moving several metres at a time. It's an ominous combination.
At around 9 o'clock this morning, we were looking at about 90 kilometres an hour in Katoomba, which is what we did not want to hear.
The Mayor of the Blue Mountains is Mark Greenhill.
So I'm afraid to say that at this stage, the ingredients we didn't want to have come together are coming together. And we're now just getting ready for what is likely to be a very bad day.
Now, we're at a disaster recovery centre here in Springwood. You're expecting quite a few people to arrive here as the day progresses?
I'm hoping we don't. I'm hoping that no new people have to come here. Recognising we've already lost 210 homes, there's been 109 damaged, so I'm hoping that figure doesn't rise. When you consider that figure, though, one thing that does please me and the council is that we've had no fatalities. All those homes lost and no fatalities, that's a record we want to maintain. But I'm hoping no one needs to come here today, but if they do, it's ready. The people inside are fantastic.
Scores of people are expected at the evacuation centre this afternoon. Nina Orell is waiting with her 2 children, also in Springwood. Her husband is doing some last-minute preparations at their Falconbridge home before they leave.
We were packed 2 days ago, so we were ready to go yesterday, and today we just had to put essentially stuck in the car, and we're ready to go, really.
So what sort of things did you put in the car?
Documents, passport, photos was the first thing I packed, and then just clothes for the next, 3 or 4 days, toiletries, stuff that I don't want to part with. So we had time to prepare, thankfully.
And your husband's still at home?
He is still at home. He wants to do some more cleaning up and just keep cuttings, grass cuttings. He did mine yesterday. He wants to remove them so he can just remove danger areas from the house.
But there are people who will stay today, against the advice of authorities. For them, it's likely to be a long and dangerous day.
Martin Cudahy reporting from Springwood. Well, as we've been hearing, hundreds of people have opted to flee the Blue Mountains as high winds fan the bushfires that have been burning now for a week. Even veteran firefighters were anxious as they set out to confront the fires this morning, as Brendan Trembath reports from just outside Blackheath.
This is the road to Goverts-Leaf, one of the most popular tourist spots in the Blue Mountains. But it's deserted today except for fire crews. The park is closed because of the current bushfire emergency. It's very, very windy. The towering eucalyptus trees are being whipped about. The high winds are a major concern for the hundreds of firefighters deployed in the Blue Mountains and around the city of Lithgow. Jim Pitcher from O'Connell Brigade is anxious.
It's a bit hard to know yet. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to hit, and that's the big concern. Not knowing is a worry.
His concern is shared by Patrick Sinclair from Sunny Corner Brigade.
Oh, well, I think we're all a bit nervous, but we're ready to go and keen to get out there and make a difference.
Here on the road to Goverts-Leaf, the only traffic is fire trucks. There are more signs of life up the road in Blackheath at the Altitude Deli, where Jamie Simon has been making dozens of coffees.
But I think we've all just kind of been focused on helping more than anything else, so
Among those who's chosen to stay is Blackheath resident Rob Emanuel.
We've got bins of water in the front and backyards along with towels to be saturated to be thrown into any spot fires that occur on the ground. We've got all our hoses out. The car is packed. It's amazing what you can leave behind, and we're prepared.
What's packed in the car?
Would you believe my shortwave radios, my wife's laptop, and a few clothes?
Now, the shortwave radios, is that an interest or because you expect that cell phone networks might be down, mobile phone networks?
No, it's purely an interest. It has been from all my life.
When you look around this area, there are many firefighters starting to move in. Are you impressed by the level of support?
The level of support is impressive. There's a lot of appliances that are on standby that haven't been moved down to the fire fronts yet. If the fire comes up the Gross Valley, it will turn right at Junction Rock, head straight up Govert's Leap, and will attack the town from the eastern side. That's happened the last time we had a fire down in the Gross Valley.
Why do you live in the Blue Mountains?
Because Blackheath is a great place to live. Wonderful community, you get 4 seasons a year, and it's just a fun place to be.
Yet every couple of years, every decade or so, there's a major bushfire emergency.
Yes, that's right. And we put up with it.
Fellow Blackheath resident Mike Churgwin has also decided to stay.
There's no imminent threat. We believe the backburning's worked. The wind for the foreseeable part of today is coming from the right direction, and we're confident that we can. We have a survival plan in process, and we know where to go.
At what point would you consider leaving?
If there was a direct request by the RFS that we leave town, we would adhere to that. Other than that, I don't think we would. We'd go to the Blackheath Oval. That's as far as we'd go. We wouldn't try going down the highway. If anything, if really bad, we'd go down the Megalong Valley.
Why do you live in the Blue Mountains?
It's a lifestyle decision we made many years ago, and it's a risky decision. Anyone living in the mountains is taking a risk, but we think we've covered it. We're insured, and we've made the decision not to risk anyone's lives trying to save our property. We'll just walk away from it, and we live here because we love the place.
That's Blackheath resident Mike Churgwin with Brendan Trembath. While many residents are heeding the Fire Commissioner's warnings to just get out of the danger zone, some bushfire experts are raising questions about the effectiveness of the fire information for residents. One bushfire observer says the instructions on how to prepare a property to withstand fire are not clear enough. As Tanya Nolan reports.
It was an ominous statement delivered by the New South Wales Premier Barry O'Farrell this morning.
We are all in this together. We're going to get through this day. If you haven't made plans, if you haven't prepared yourself, those people who live in the Blue Mountains, now is the time to leave.
Each state and territory is responsible for its own fire management, and in New South Wales, the Rural Fire Service has a fire preparedness checklist for households to follow. Residents in at-risk areas are encouraged to leave early or stay and defend their homes. But they're discouraged from choosing the latter option if they can't answer yes to the following questions.
Is your property well prepared and maintained? Are you physically and emotionally prepared to defend your property? Do you know what to do before, during and after a bushfire? Do you have well-maintained resources and equipment? And does everyone planning to stay and defend know how to use them? Do you have access to water for firefighting purposes? Example, a tank, dam or pool. Town water supplies can fail during emergencies. Do you have appropriate personal protective clothing? And do you have a backup plan?
Professor Ross Bradstock from the Centre for Environmental Management of Bushfires at the University of Wollongong says the stay and defend policies in New South Wales have been tweaked since the Black Saturday Bushfires Royal Commission in Victoria and now include a threshold. If the conditions are rated at the worst level, that is catastrophic, residents are strongly encouraged to leave. If the conditions are the next level down at extreme, like they are today, it's still possible to stay and defend your property.
There's clear evidence, again from past fires, that under those sorts of conditions, a well-prepared, fit person can actually make a difference in terms of saving their property and even saving their neighbour's property. The second thing is quite simple too. It may be safest under those conditions to be with a building rather than out on the roads, etc. That's why the authorities are trying to say to people, if you're going to leave, you've got to get out of there well ahead of time.
But Professor Bradstock says the very definition of preparedness is problematic.
We actually don't have a definitive definition of what preparedness is because it covers so many different aspects of a property, and it will vary so much according to the way that property is built, where it's situated in the landscape, etc.
Professor Bradstock says a better way would be for independent assessments to be done on homes built in high-risk areas.
A system whereby people are given definitive information about the risk they're facing and the sorts of measures they can take based on an individual assessment of their property that could be implemented to reduce the risk, and the sorts of change in risk that would ensue from those actions. If you gave people that information, then I'm pretty sure it'll make a difference. But that's obviously expensive and requires a lot of effort.
But it may be worth it if early data on the link between fire weather conditions and deaths are anything to go by. The CSIRO has been mapping the link, which shows that one life is lost for every 17 houses, and most lives are lost when people decide to leave their homes at the last minute.
We just lost 210 houses and nobody died.
One death and more than 200 homes destroyed.
So we're doing pretty good.
Authorities fear both tolls could rise. The Insurance Council of Australia's Campbell Fuller says the condition
we've been training for 10 fucking years to keep people alive.
Consumers pay.
Run away and rebuild afterwards. Don't stand there and die for a fucking chook house.
The Insurance Council is working on a number of programs around the resilience of buildings in
every fire truck in the RFS has a water tank, and the bottom 1/3 of that water tank is for crew protection during a burnover. You only ever fight fire with the top half of the tank, right? Because the bit between half and a third is what you use to get yourself to the water point.
Do insurance assessors take into account whether people have a fire plan in place if they have lost their property in a bushfire?
Assessors will be looking at the damage to the property itself, and with more than 200 properties totally destroyed, I think there's very little that most householders could have done to prevent that damage.
More than 940 fire insurance claims have been made so far, totalling more than $113 million in losses.
That's the cost.
To the economy now, and interest rates look...
That's the cost of letting carbon go into the atmosphere. It's not the price of carbon at the pump, not the price of carbon when you're buying your electricity. It's the cost of venting carbon to the atmosphere, because we haven't actually had any more than a degree of global warming so far, and the fossil fuel lobby, headed by bloody Tony Abbott, it's stated that they're quite happy to have at least 2 degrees of global warming. They think we'll just adapt to it. Well, we're not fucking adapting very well to 1 degree of global warming, are we? Are we? Why is it as bloody dry as it is now? Because we just had the 4th consecutive hottest winter ever. And during the hottest winter ever, the plants did not stop growing. There was no 2-month hiatus where they just sat there and the moisture stayed in the soil. So all that lovely soil moisture that we had after the floods, it's all back in the air. And being back in the air, it's available to add energy to the air masses and the weather. And the flight path trajectory does not look good. Honey Bunchykins, does not look good. There you go. That's the midday sun. And the wind is from the northwest up here in the New England tablelands, and we're showing 35 degrees out here. The people who reckon that the little bit of rain they got last night in the Blue Mountains wouldn't do anything to change the fire behaviour, I don't think they're considering the physics of it. 1 point on 1 acre is 1 tonne of water, and 1 millimetre on 1 hectare is 10 tonnes of water. And my soil moisture profile was down here at 3/4 of an inch, and I had 13 millimetres of rain on Thursday night and Friday morning. And I'm pretty sure this place is better off because it had 64 tonnes of water per acre dropped on it from the sky. I know the thunderstorm that came through yesterday was not enough to put the fires out, but if it added 30 or 40 tonnes per hectare of water to the fuel mass, it's got to be better than not having the rain. It might have stopped some of the back burning, but I don't think the back burning was actually going to do a huge amount because the fire is on too large a scale. Best thing that could happen is wet the fuel mass down, and that's what the rain did. So I'm happy about the rain. There you can see it's 27 degrees in the shade of the trees, which is why I actually prefer having the trees around. But for those of you who've been worried, as I have, about the way these flax lily plants store leaves in a little aerated stack just ready to go off and create a big fire. Yeah, this morning I put the brush cutter blade onto the TBC 500, and anybody who's familiar with what the view used to look like will see that I've been out there chopping down a lot of potential food plants because at the moment they're a bushfire risk. So the next trick will be to pick up the thickest and the driest of it, put it in the wheelbarrow and take it further out away from here. Although I am thinking that if I was to wet that down, it would produce a fairly nice barrier against ember attack. And yeah, because all of our best firefighting appliances and all of our best trained firefighters are at the moment down in the Sydney Basin, Warple's on a lot is taken today seriously enough that there's 100 litres of water pre-positioned, ready to be put out in a donut ring via the over-drilled rosette. Around the stuff that it would be much more convenient if the ground was damp when the ember arrived. As for young fella me lad, who yesterday was on the rapid response squad at, I think he said, the Penrith Leagues Club, waiting for something to go pear-shaped. He had a lazy day yesterday, sat around all day, got a good night's sleep, and therefore, being fairly experienced and well rested, that's always a bit of a worry to the troops when the generals pull that trick. He sent me a text this morning at 9:30 saying he was going on shift and he's out there, or he was at 9:30 this morning, headed for a town called Lawson in the Blue Mountains, which I'm assuming is near the town of Blaxland. Probably near the town of Wentworth, because Blaxland, Wentworth and Lawson were the three white explorers who were supposed to be the first people across the Blue Mountains. Afraid I can't do any better than that, because as you can see, the area where the fires are is actually outside of my maps. So, for whatever it's worth, that's the midday update. 23rd of October 2013. Warble's on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.